we'll now be starting our event with the Stellar Development Foundation, an exploration into digital finance. If you could write your name, grade, school, and why you registered in the for this event into the chat, that would be very much appreciated. And for those in the audience or on YouTube who are unfamiliar with the Junior Economic Club, we are a student-run nonprofit organization that provides members with equal opportunity for business exposure, empowering the next generation of effective leaders. We accomplish this through a three-faceted approach of quarterly economic forums, weekly workshops with industry leaders, and ongoing community initiatives. We fully fund membership for more than 150 of Chicago's most ambitious students and more than 30 schools across Chicagoland, offering students free opportunities to explore business and economics and make an impact on their community. And the member engagement committee will also be having a post-event discussion after the event. So if you would wish to stay after, please chat Cole Francis for more information. And of course, if you have any questions during the event, please privately chat them to me and indicate whether you would like to ask the question live or have it asked anonymously. And our event features Ankilu, Community and Events Manager at the Stellar Development Foundation. And at the Stellar Development Foundation, she contributes to the broader Stellar ecosystem by coordinating events, fostering relationships with universities and other educational organizations, as well as engaging, supporting, and growing the thriving community of Stellar developers and enthusiasts. As a committed globetrotter, she has a deep interest in other cultures and has a passion for financial inclusion. That's all I have. Ankit, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much for introducing me and for organizing this event. It's an honor to be here. Let me share my screen. Let's see. Share. Can you see my screen? I think you're muted.
Oh yeah, I can see it. We can see it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I just want to make sure since I don't want to present. Well, again, thank you so much for inviting me to this event. I'm Anka, Community and Events Manager of the Stellar Development Foundation, or SDF for short. Our mission is really to leverage blockchain technology to drive equitable access to the global financial system. SDF is a nonprofit founded in 2014 to support the development and growth of the open source Stellar network. So in the agenda, so we will talk, I will introduce a little bit about, Stellar and what is blockchain. And then we go a bit more into digital assets. We talk about interoperability, really why, these technologies are important and affect the world. And also I wanted to spotlight a few applications that are built on Stellar. And if we have some time, I also wanted to talk about Stellar Quest. Maybe we talk about Stellar Quest after some questions of you, since it might take a bit long, but yeah, so that's really what I wanted to talk about with you all today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat, or I will likely answer them at the end. So today's disconnected financial system. Advancements in technology have made it so that information can be shared instantly with anyone in the world, regardless where it came from. But unfortunately, the same thing is not true for money. Today's financial system infrastructure is outdated and operating on models unchanged for decades. At its best, it's slow, cumbersome, and fraught with fees. At its worst, it leaves millions of people marginalized. And it's even worse if you picture connecting payment systems across borders and currencies. SWIFT does allow banks to message each other, but to actually settle and reconcile payments, they often rely on correspondent banking relationships, passing money from bank to bank, and each bank in its own time zone and jurisdiction. So things are slow, complex, and opaque. Plus, a lot of people don't have easy access to banks. Blockchain technology really gives us the opportunity to build a different system, one that fosters equality, efficiency, connection, and cooperation. Stellar, the topic of today's talk, is a global public blockchain that is built for interoperability and to further financial access and inclusion. So a little bit about Stellar. At a high level, it's a decentralized open network that can connect the world's financial infrastructure. It does that thanks to the speed and scale of the Stellar blockchain to transfer value. Stellar makes it possible to create, send, and trade digital representations of all forms of money: dollars, pesos, Bitcoin, pretty much anything. So it's designed so that all the world's financial systems can work together on a single network. But before we dive into how Stellar actually works, what do we mean by blockchain? When I say that, blockchain is such an interesting word. It's been used over the past year quite a lot of times, and people often don't know what it is or have not a good understanding of what it is and could be. So today I will explain blockchain and its network actors on the basis of this diagram. Let's start with the foundation and talk about the ledger. So for centuries, people have tracked information using a ledger, a simple chronological list of data, like this one right here. It's very simple. It tracks transactions and such as trades and payments between people. So blockchain basically is a ledger just like this one. So it's similar to a traditional ledger. The main difference is that instead of being controlled by a central authority, like you can think of a bank or a company or even an individual, the ledger is dispersed across multiple computers, which can all be located all over the world and run by anyone with an internet connection. So to kind of illustrate this, here is a traditional database. These need a central authority to maintain them, and that authority has absolute power over what that database contains. So you can imagine when security issues arise within the authority, it's possible that the data can be altered or even deleted. Also, they're often not interoperable with each other. So different databases they don't connect well with each other, which leads in financial systems to large delays when money has to be moved from one place to another. As the world, as you know it, has become more connected and our interactions have become more digital, we've needed something more resilient and also something more collaborative, something that will work at scale, but not subject to any single political ideology, personal motive, or corporate incentive to manage our data. So invented in 2009, blockchain is an answer to that need. Blockchain is a kind of database, but different from traditional databases as it's not maintained by a central authority. Blockchain is a method for keeping data synchronized across multiple independent stakeholders. Where a traditional database is perfect for tracking records for a single entity, blockchain allows a group of entities who all might be unrelated and all might have an incentive to alter their shared data to agree and maintain a single data set. So blockchain is used for all kinds of data, but the incentive to edit data in your own favor is very strong in financial systems. I mean, if I could change my bank account number to a few $1 million, that'd be great. But obviously, we can't do that, and that's why blockchain is very, very useful to change for tracking money. So, for example, this is what the Stellar network looks like. Stellar is a peer-to-peer network made out of nodes, which will fill the place of independent stakeholders, as I mentioned earlier. So you can see all those blue dots. Those are all the nodes on the network, and those are computers that connect and communicate with one another and keep the common accounting ledger. They approve and ratify changes on it as well. This network is open participation, which means that anyone can set up a node, and decentralized because nodes are run by independent individuals and organizations all over the globe. So as I mentioned, these nodes keep a common accounting ledger, like the one I showed before. But this time, the ledger is really stable, secure, and transparent. The ledger tracks ownership, what you own, and what you want to do with what you own. So they have three key features that set them apart from traditional ledgers. Stable, because the network is spread over servers and all computers over the world. It doesn't rely on a central server, so it can be turned off. It's also secure. Transactions on blockchain are immutable. Once a transaction has been made, there's no going back. No one can manipulate the data to their liking. This makes it very secure. Transparent too. Blockchain ledgers are public, so everyone can see the ledger and trust that the information is correct. So let's take a look at our previous ledger again. So I mentioned immutable. And what does that word even mean? Like, why is a blockchain ledger immutable? So immutability really means that once you do something, you can go back, right? So there are two main factors that contribute to immutability. One is cryptography. So to illustrate this in the most simple way, imagine that these two transactions form a block. Then when more transactions are added to the ledgers, they're added in a block as well. So here are more transactions added, they're added in a block, and the different blocks are cryptographically linked together in a chronological way. In simple terms, very simple terms, each block has its own code called a hash. Each block is unique, and so each block has a unique hash. Each block also contains the hash of the previous block, right? This is really what changed the blocks together. And that's why it's called blockchain. You have blocks, you have the chain, and that's basically how it is. It's the best way I could illustrate it. So let's say if someone wanted to alter a previous block, for example, say that Lisa sent $100 to Justin, it would change the hash. And so the rest of the blocks wouldn't add up anymore, since the next block doesn't have the correct information about the previous block. So it's naturally refuted by the network. This cannot happen. The other factor that contributes to immutability is being decentralized that makes it impossible to manipulate the ledger. The way this is happening differs in various networks. You might have heard of them. There's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, there's a few others out there. I'm just going to talk a little bit about these networks. And the main differences between these networks lie in how the transactions on the network, like transactions could be like a payment, are being validated. So as to say, if I have only $10 in my account, a transaction of me sending $20 to you should not go through because I don't have that much money in my account, right? So a mechanism is set in place to really prevent these faulty transactions from going through. Or in other words, make sure that only valid transactions are recorded on the blockchain. Now, this is very important. And the mechanisms that make this possible are called consensus mechanisms. Now, you can look into this a bit more later on, so don't worry if you don't get all of this. But basically, in these consensus mechanisms, a certain consensus, so that's agreement, is reached among the network over valid transactions and what valid transactions are. It's good to get a sense of these are. Again, I'm not going in too deep of this. So the main ways to do this is proof of work. Bitcoin uses this mechanism. With Bitcoin, anonymous entities or individuals compete with each other to finish complex computations. And if they do, they'll receive a bit of Bitcoin as reward. This is called mining. There's also proof of stake. Ethereum uses this mechanism, and anonymous entities or individuals mine or validate a block based on how many tokens they own. Again, mining, you might have heard of this before, you might want to look into it a bit later if you're interested, is based on the amount of computational effort that one does. So there's also concerns about sustainability. A recent article by the BBC pointed out that Bitcoin consumes more electricity than Argentina, and which is kind of crazy, right? Anyway, Stella doesn't rely on mining. Stella uses the Federated Byzantine Agreement and implements it as the Stellar Consensus Protocol, or SCP for short. Here, each known entity, which is usually a company built on Stellar that wants to strengthen a network, chooses which other entities to listen to when it comes to validating transactions. Of course, this is a bit complicated, so I don't expect any of you to really understand it a few times. But this is a good way to kind of understand it. And if you want to learn more about it, there are more documents on our website. And there's also a lot of information out there that you can read more about the different networks. So let's take a look how this all connects to the ledger. So on Stellar, every 3 to 5 seconds, the nodes on the network combine all the transactions submitted to them, whether it's a payment from you to me, whether it's a payment from someone from Argentina to the US, for example, all the transactions, and they combine it and submit them into a transaction set. Then they communicate with one another, use a process called what I talked about before, the Stellar Consensus Protocol, to vote on the validity of that set. Once all the nodes ratify a transaction set, it's applied to and changes the state of the ledger. So let's quickly walk through that process. So it starts with the ledger N. Then Stellar users, wherever they are in the world, submit transactions to send and exchange all kinds of assets on the network. They can move funds anywhere in the world and convert currencies along the way thanks to a built-in order books, which we'll go over in a minute. These transactions are then bundled into sets, confirmed by validating nodes, and applied to the ledger. And you can see ledger, and then a bunch of transactions happen, ledger endpoint 1. At which point they're final and irreversible, and the whole process starts over. So to summarize, in essence, blockchain is a public time-stamped series of immutable records of data. Synchronized across multiple independent stakeholders. That sums kind of it up. And now that you know more about what blockchain is and how it works, let's take a look at how digital assets come into play. Right. So before we begin, I just want to make clear that blockchain and cryptocurrencies are not the same thing, but they're often confused with each other. It's understandable. Sometimes when people talk about Bitcoin, they either talk about Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, or refer to the Bitcoin network that's often distinguished with capital B. Important to know is that they're not the same. So blockchain is the technology that really enables the existence of cryptocurrency, among other things. A cryptocurrency is a digital asset, which is basically a medium of exchange, such as the US dollar. The main difference is that cryptocurrencies are digital. They're secured by blockchain and are not issued by government or other central authority. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and ETH are not the only digital assets that exist on blockchain. So let's take a closer look at key features of digital assets. Value issued on blockchain is fundamentally different from value that you have in your bank account, for example. So when you deposit cash to your bank account, the bank technically is then in control of your money and then holds it for you, right? With blockchain, any value that you have is associated with your account. So you own your money. This also means that if you lose the keys to your account on blockchain, depending on how the interfacing wallet stores keys, you may also lose the value that's in that too. So that's important to know. It's an important aspect, key storage. And digital assets on blockchain have cash-like properties. That sounds kind of strange at first, since you're like, what? But digital assets, how is that possible? But in contrast of your money in the bank, once a payment in blockchain is made, it cannot be reversed. So this is the immutability aspect of blockchain that I mentioned about earlier, which makes it secure. Once you give $10 in cash to someone, you cannot take it back either, right? So that's a similarity. Another cool thing about digital assets is they're not limited by money as we know it. Depending on each blockchain network, you have cryptocurrencies, stablecoins, CBDCs, even precious metals like gold and silver, stocks, real estate, and even art in NFTs. Highly recommend looking into all of those digital assets. So before we start that, I kind of wanted to talk a bit about asset issuance in Stellar. Bringing this in the context of Stellar is that it allows anyone to create a redeemable, tradable representation of any asset in a few lines of code. Like we call these digital assets tokens. Token issuance is the backbone of the Stellar network. It's how Stellar connects the world currencies, and it's what Stellar was built for. So you can issue a token that represents anything from corn bushels to gold, or even an hour of your time as a tutor. But tokens are particularly useful when tied to fiat currencies, such as dollars or yuan or euros. So these fiat-backed currencies are issued by a regulated financial institutions, money services business, or fintech companies called anchors. So here's an anchor. And next. So anchors really help create a world where the existing financial system is connected to and interoperable with Stellar. They serve as the on and off ramps of the Stellar of the Stellar network and connect Stellar to a local banking system. Also, they handle regulatory compliance by doing things like know your customer, KYC information, so that their users can make deposits and withdrawals. A user obtains a Stellar network asset by depositing traditional currency with an anchor using traditional rails, like a bank, for example. They can then hold that asset in a Stellar wallet or app, use it to make payments or trade it for other assets on the network. Anchors maintain fiat reserves equivalent to the value of issued tokens. So users can redeem them back to fiat anytime. And fiat, just so you know, means assets like the US dollar or yuan are fiat assets, and you have also crypto assets that are different. Just so you know, I just realized I didn't explain it. And so when people hold these tokens, they can treat them just like traditional money because they know that they're exchangeable for traditional money in the end. So this might seem a bit unexceptional, right? Like issuing electronic credits in the form of a bank account for local currencies, it's basically what most banks do thousands of times a day. But in a global system, this one-to-one promise of a token for a currency has important implications. For instance, no matter how a USD token moves through the economy, the underlying dollars never leave that bank account in the United States. So suppose someone loans their tokens to someone else who then uses them to buy a car. No bank has to settle the purchase or approve the loan. And furthermore, it doesn't matter if the seller of the car lives in Mexico or Singapore even, or anywhere really, they can still own the tokens and trade them however they please. So how do these assets move on Stellar? Value on Stellar can be moved in three ways. The simplest and most common way to move value is to make a payment, right? I send US dollar, you receive US dollar. But instead of sending value to another user, I can also trade an asset I hold for another asset on the network. I sell USD for euros. Finally, I can also combine the two into a path payment, what we call path payment, which allows me to send one currency and have the recipient receive another. I send US dollars, you receive euros. So trades and path payments are possible because Stellar has a built-in decentralized exchange. In addition to tracking balances as like other blockchain networks like Bitcoin or Ethereum do, Stellar also tracks and settles trades in a decentralized, ownerless way. It has a common built-in order books called the Decentralized Exchange, or DEX for short. Every token on Stellar is exchangeable with any other token on a network, and the Stellar protocol itself connects buyers and sellers with each other. So users can submit their bids or asks to the public network via a single simple operation, and every ledger close, compatible trades will automatically resolve without the use of intermediaries. So the DEX facilitates universal currency conversion, which is not only great for traders. What I mentioned before, it's also great for cross-border and cross-currency transactions called path payments. I mentioned before, a path payment allows a user to send one currency and have the recipient receive another. This is a powerful innovation for international payments. For example, an American company can pay an invoice in Mexico by spending dollar tokens, while the vendor receives peso tokens. Neither side incurs exchange risk or delays, and both sides only get the currency they want. Stellar automatically finds the best conversion rate via the DEX. And path payments are really the fulfillment of Stellar's interoperability promise. Value flows seamlessly from account to account in whatever form is most useful. Speaking about interoperability, what does that word even mean? I did not know what this word was before joining SDF, but it's been a word that I've been frequently hearing more about, and it's a very interesting one, so I wanted to tell you a bit more about it. Interoperability is about working with the existing financial system, connecting today's financial rails with digital ones so that systems of value can be interoperable across borders. Today's system is fragmented. Every region has its own payment scheme, and they're not interoperable. That results in today's system being very slow and expensive and even inequitable, right? It leaves millions of people marginalized. The value of innovation is clear, going from old rails to new rails. Using blockchain technology to connect financial infrastructure, no matter where you are in the world, systems and forms of value can be interoperable with each other. That's really what blockchain is about. Blockchain technology is challenging us to think about money and value in a new way, but like evolutions of the past, presenting the opportunity to make it better, more effective and efficient. In much the same way that the internet democratized access to information, blockchain does democratize access to the financial system. So it can make sending value around the world as easy as sending an email. But there are actually a couple ways to understand this interoperability in practice and how this technology is built and how it's evolving. One is inter-network interoperability, where digital currencies flow back and forth seamlessly on a single network. This is what we're just showing with our transaction flow. Different digital assets being exchanged on the same ledger within 3 to 5 seconds on Stellar, for example. The other is inter-network interoperability, where digital currencies flow back and forth seamlessly between networks. This would be a digital currency that works on a few blockchain networks, for example. So let's go and get into a bit more specific examples of these. One great example is remittances. So to give a little bit of background on how remittances work today, each year, over $500 billion of value is transferred across borders through personal remittances. And in most cases, these remittances are transfers of money from foreign workers to family and friends in their home country, sent on a monthly basis. The typical transaction is about $200 to $300, and the average retail cost of these transfers runs to 7 or 8%. Sending costs can be as high as 15% when transferring money to people in developing economies. And those are really high fees for people that have to use these like on a regular basis. So let's take a look at how today's system works. You've got financial institutions and intermediaries. So I think I have to click. Yeah. Agents and correspondent banks are all operating on different infrastructure in different countries, and patchworking a solution to really move money from point A to point B. Settlement times are slow, and it can create additional operating costs, which results in service provider fees or costs built into the FX transaction, ultimately ending up costing the customer. So the end result really is that remittance recipients receive less money than they would have. But when we have inter-network interoperability, we can eliminate that friction. So because all of this can happen on a single network with a common infrastructure, remittance service providers, digital money apps, growing fintech companies, and remote traditional banks can use this technology really to reduce friction and costs associated with traditional MTOs, correspondent banks, and financial payment rails, with the anchors on the network who take care of deposits, redemptions, and compliance on Stellar. So an example, really like this happens like across the world right now on Stellar as well. So this is what it looks like for digital currencies interoperating on the same network. But in reality, there's actually a lot of blockchain networks out there. And how could these networks interoperate and work together? How could assets exist on multiple networks at once? This is the other kind of interoperability I talked about, internetwork, and it's already happening today. So this is a really interesting asset to know about. It's called USD Coin, or USDC for short. It's a stable coin developed by the Center Consortium, a collaboration between the Circle Internet Financial and Coinbase, which is an exchange for cryptocurrencies. It's a digital asset issued by regulated and financial institutions. It's fully backed by reserve assets, and it's redeemable on a one-to-one basis for US dollars. Stellar USDC is part of Center's multi-chain USDC framework. It coexists and interoperates with various USD tokens on other chains, including the original Ethereum USDC token. So who uses USDC? Who uses Stellar? In our diagram, this is the last speed that I like to talk about: wallets and apps that use Stellar to move money and enter new markets. Stellar is an open and permissionless network, as I mentioned before. So really, anyone can build anything they can imagine on Stellar. But generally, it's used by companies and developers also offering financial products and services, who can take advantage of its features and build better solutions to real-world problems. For example, developers and businesses can integrate USDC into Stellar-based apps and services, and to allow users to make deposits and withdrawals. Users can hold, transfer, and trade USDC just like any other asset on the network. So one example of business building on Stellar is our wallets. And wallets are used for value and data transfers. Unlike physical wallets, where the asset or cash is stored inside your own leather wallet, Stellar assets don't actually store, a Stellar wallet don't store the asset. Instead, they give users a way to access a Stellar account, to view the assets and data associated with that account, and to sign and submit transactions. So your account really still lives on the ledger, on the blockchain, but wallets give a way to view your account and interact with it. Wallets also connect to anchors that I mentioned before, so that users can easily deposit and withdraw fiat currency and get on and off the network. A good example of a Stellar wallet is the Uhuru wallet. So Uhuru wallet is a WhatsApp-based wallet that allows for sending intra-African payments. It allows people to perform transactions such as person to person, person to merchant, cash in, cash out. You can even pay utility bills and buy airtime. Uhuru Wallet also supports USDC, which I talked about earlier, so that their users are free to hold, send, and receive funds in USDC as well. They're currently active in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Nigeria, and are looking to expand to other countries within Africa. As most of their target market are already using WhatsApp in their everyday lives, they have decided to build their apps on WhatsApp. Actually, this is quite an interesting one because they realized a lot of people that hold phones don't actually have that much storage on their phone. So WhatsApp is usually like one of the few apps they do have on their phones. So they build it into WhatsApp, this wallet into WhatsApp. So it's like a kind of a bot. It's really interesting, honestly, and it's really interesting that now it allows people to really send transactions between different countries in Africa. So another wallet I wanted to show you is Vibrant, which is a dollar savings app for people in Argentina. Vibrant gives people in Argentina inflation-beating tools and lets them buy and store digital assets, which are backed one-to-one with the US dollar, in this case, USDC as well. Another company I wanted to show you is called DStock. DStock is a fintech company that uses buy and sell offers on Stellar, Stellar's Decentralized Exchange, to allow users to obtain stocks. So its goal is to make investing accessible and affordable for people in emerging markets like Vietnam and South Africa, and through a borderless digital interface for security tokens built on the Stellar network. So SD stock users requires only a smartphone to access a global financial market, which thanks to the Stellar's infrastructure layer, the entire process makes it not only more accessible, but also more efficient. This is really interesting because it creates an opportunity for emerging markets to access financial products they've never had access to before, which can improve the lives of millions of people while simultaneously also creating exciting new business opportunities. So these companies have chosen Stellar to move money and enter new markets. They work on providing equitable access to the global financial system. This is our mission at SDF, and to achieve it, interoperability between systems is key. Siloed systems like the ones we have today are slow, costly, and exclude those who need it most. Blockchain technology can connect financial systems and making them easily interoperable. That's both efficient and affordable. So now I might think, after hearing my whole spiel, now that's great and all, but what can I do? How can I learn more? How can I get involved? So we actually offer at Stellar Development Foundation, we have a lot of cool events and workshops and hackathons that we organize. You can join the conversation on Stellar Global, which is on Discord. I can drop a link in the chat in a bit. This is a community that's built of members that really are excited about Stellar, or developers, or people that just have questions. It's a growing community. It's an exciting place to be in. Another thing that's really exciting is Stellar Quest, which is a fun way to learn about developing on Stellar. So it's really the tech sometimes that can people like, oh, I don't understand the tech and I don't know how to code. How can I still be involved? Well, through Stellar Quest, you basically complete challenges that have to do with how can I create an account? How can I issue your own asset, for example. This is a great way to kind of learn about it, and you can also win awesome badges and rewards. I might have some time after the questions today to demo it, but I think there will be a little time where it's not available since we're making it really great. I think on May 3rd, it will be available again. People can download an application, go through the challenges, and really win awards. So I will likely put some information about that. I will send it to you about it so that you can share it with everyone. So this is a great way to also learn Stellar, but really to learn the tech that powers these financial technologies. Also, if you are a developer, you code, or you're interested in building on Stellar, we offer hackathons. And to be honest, there are hackathons. Like a lot of blockchain networks offer hackathons. Hackathons are a great way to just get to know more about the technology, to learn about it, and to build a project on it. They're also very fun. Virtual fans are fun too. The in-person ones are even more fun since you're kind of all together in a room and coding, and it's really fun. One thing, if you know a lot about Stellar, you have built projects on Stellar through hackathons, we have the Stellar Community Fund, which allows anyone to build a project and really get funding for their project and build it into a company. So that might be a bit more down the line, but that's definitely something, if you're really interested, really dedicated, you want to build a project on Stellar, change the world, yes, that's your place to go, get funding. All right, so if you want to learn more about Stellar, go to stellar.org. It really has everything you need. The community is building Stellar to address really what we're doing and all our events that we're organizing. So visit Stellar to learn more, I would say. And yeah, now there's any questions. So I will stop sharing and let Alp share his screen.
And thank you so much. That was a very excellent explanation of it, and it really broke down everything. So yeah, right now it's time for questions. For those in the audience, you'd be able to ask your questions later in the event as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to message me in the chat and indicate if you would like to have it asked live or anonymously. So these are just some pre-prepared questions. and you touched on this a little bit, but like, what has been the greatest impact of blockchain and fintech on the world economy in these past 10 years?
Yeah, that's very good question. So I think like to really like, because blockchain and fintech are different terms, right? So to separate them, blockchain is a technology that's relatively like new, right? It's actually invented by an unknown entity. They published called Satoshi Nakamoto. They published the first paper on it back in 2009. So it's quite relatively new, right? Fintech has been around for much longer than that. It refers to the technology and innovation aimed to improve traditional financial methods and services. So really the way we use money. Think about like mobile payments, Swift, even like services like PayPal and Apple Pay, many more. They're all fintech innovations that have offered great impacts on the economy as you and I know it. But as I also mentioned in my presentation, not everyone has had the same financial access as people in first world countries do. Like, for example, there are 1.7 billion unbanked adults in the world. And like, while it's so easy here to send money to your friends or even invest stocks on your phone, the same cannot be said in most emerging economies. Fees and delays of traditional cross-border payments and remittances are major pain points for a lot of people who just want to send money home and even feed their families. So blockchain technology is already impacting and will increase impact everyone, I would say, especially those that aren't included in a traditional financial system of today. At SDF, I think really our mission is to create equitable access to the global financial system. So I personally believe that this will be the greatest impact of blockchain and fintech on the world economy, and not only for the past few years, but even more so in the years to come.
And yeah, thank you so much. And just kind of as you led into it, like, how do you expect blockchain and fintech to change over the next few years, and kind of looking in that future direction?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so I think it's really like about how these technologies are also structured and how really like Web 2.0 going into Web 3.0 is structured. So blockchain is really interesting because it's a fundamental disruption how traditionally value and really data in general have worked in the past. We're really entering an era to open, trustless, and permissionless technologies. I would say open in a way that they're built from open source software. So it's open for anyone to see and built by open and accessible communities really all over the world. Trustless in a way that anyone can interact with one another without needing a trusted entity or trusted third party. And that's also like I talked about permissionless as well, right? No one needs permission to participate. So these are really interesting technologies that have these key features that will lead, I think, in the years to come. For example, Stellar is an open source network for currencies and payments. Anyone can access it. There is no permission or application needed. I hope that in the next few years, we'll see greater adoption of blockchain in the fintech space to really open up access for anyone. I hope education will help. I hope that more people talk about it. And also just to note, right, Stellar also has always been intended to enhance rather than undermine or replace the existing financial system. So even like banks and governments, and are already and will continue to play a role in also issuing digital currencies. I think we live in a really exciting era, and I think the years to come will even offer more innovations with blockchain and fintech.
Thank you so much. And I just want to make sure we have enough time for questions and kind of also like for you to demonstrate Stellar Quest. So I think we'll ask like 3 more questions. And this was just like, how is Stellar and the larger fintech industry affected by COVID-19?
Yes, COVID-19. We all know this too well. I think 2020 was an interesting year for me as well. When it all started, like I started actually at SDF in March of 2020, just before COVID hit, and my job was mainly to organize and coordinate in-person events. So you may guess, a few days in my first first few days, all in-person events were canceled. Within 2 weeks, I was working from home. It took a bit to adjust, but since my team was mostly remotely, it was easier than expected. As for the fintech industry, I cannot answer for everyone, but for SDF, working in an industry that's really at the forefront of technological innovation, we've supported a massive growth of the Stellar network and the ecosystem. In 2020 alone, payment asset volume has gone up and increased. We have more anchors than ever before and also hired a lot of people. So I think it was a good year, I would say, for SDF, for Stellar, and I hope even more so in the years to come. I think it's also like, really being at the forefront of innovation might also help with adjusting easily to like the new environment that we all had to live in, going on virtual, going on Zoom, right? Everything virtual. So yeah, I think that would be my answer to that.
Thank you. And then I think the next questions are just like kind of talking about professional development and like for our members who are in high school, just like if anyone would want to go down this road as a career path, like could you just detail like what types of career opportunities are available in the fintech and blockchain kind of industry? And also kind of like detail your personal narrative as well a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good one. There's actually many career opportunities that are available. There's a lot of talent that wanted in this industry since it's growing very fast and having it's also impacting a lot of different fields. So having also roots in both finance and technology, like you need software engineers, data analysts, managers, and product marketing, business and development areas, even investment managers, ecosystem evangelists, which is an interesting word, basically works with the ecosystem and the community of a business. Designers also needed. Everything has to look good. Legal and policy leads. It's a very important aspect. Is so to make you're working directly in with the rules and everything. So that's important. HR, community managers, and even education creators and even event managers like myself. Likely missed some too, but there's a lot of, I can tell you from now, like there's a lot of aspects that opportunities are available in the fintech industry. I think like mostly also like it's really like engineers. People are really looking for engineers, and also I mean the other career opportunities that I talked about. We have actually a lot of great opportunities open at Stellar Development Foundation. So that's just to say. As for personal narrative, what would you mean by that? Can you explain a bit?
Like, could you just talk a little bit about how you got interested in Stella and like what made you kind of join and what your kind of passions were leading up to it and just kind of that whole process?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I really enjoy working at, or I was interested in Stella Development Foundation because they worked with financial and technology, something I haven't heard about. I was originally organizing more events, and I heard about it, and they had a really interesting mission, which is create equitable access to the financial system. It's a nonprofit, and being like in my past, like I've lived most of my years in the Netherlands, where you have access, to financial services very easily, right? Kind of live in a bubble in that way. And when I started traveling more, I realized, oh wow, not everyone has this type of access. Like this is a real problem. And then when I heard about SDF later on, someone introduced me to it. I was like, this is really interesting, and I really want to learn more about it. I previously didn't even know anything really about blockchain, and then got into it. And now I'm telling you about it. So that's kind of how it went.
Sounds great. Thank you. And then this is just kind of the last thing, like any advice you would plan to give any high schoolers pursuing fintech, maybe like different strategies they should look into, what events they should participate in, anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, fintech, honestly, look into it. I think it's a wise decision overall to look into it, even if you're not particularly planning on actively pursuing it. I think I've seen it talk the other day. Maybe Angela Strange, I think she said that every company will be a fintech company in one way or another. I found that really interesting, but that's also like a good saying that, you know, in the future, in the years to come, people will deal with this more and more. And I think also if you want to work anywhere, to have any kind of knowledge of blockchain and fintech is just a really handy asset of yourself that, yeah, I think everyone should know a bit more about and how to deal with money, financial and digital, I guess fintech literacy. So what you could do, I mean, you can follow courses in your school, and if you're online or if your school doesn't offer it, like you can also start a club for blockchain fintech. A lot of people, a lot of organizations, and I guess universities and schools do this. And then when you organize a club, you can, talk about it with your fellow interested students, organize events, and even build projects together. Aside from that, if you're interested, I mean, go to events. I think that's definitely a good idea. And also, if you're interested in learning more about these technologies, hackathons are really a great place to start. You can build cool projects, win prizes, learn about new technologies. We at SDF also organize and sponsor a lot of hackathons for people to build on Stellar as well. We also organize Stellar Quest, which I mentioned earlier, which is a fun and gamified way to learn Stellar. So yeah, I think those were great ways. I think just immerse yourself with it, read a lot of things, talk about it with people, organize projects. Yeah, hope that helps.
Yeah, that was amazing. And our last question will be asked live by one of our members, Pranette. If you would just like to ask your question.
Yeah, that's me. So I'm curious about how the value of these blockchain currencies are being regulated. Like for fiat currencies, there's usually like some sort of central bank controlling like how much money is printed. And for cryptocurrency, the supply is created by miners, right? So how is that supply being regulated? Is there any limit on the people mining the currency? Um, is there any central identity controlling that value? How's that value being regulated?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I think value in general is a very interesting concept, right? And yeah, as you mentioned before, like when a value is issued by a central authority, that has something to do with it. But when value, it's really based on like collaborative effort. Personally, like that's a great question. I also want to look a bit more into that, and I don't, want to speculate anything either. But as far as regulations go on Stellar, anyone issuing assets on the network, especially those which backed one-to-one with fiat money, is subject to their own regulations and licensing requirements in the jurisdictions in which they operate that apply to the activities they perform. So for example, if they perform facilitating payments, transactions, or issue assets, money transmission, they have their own regulations and licensing requires where they are located. So yeah, this is also why typically regulated financial institutions, money services businesses, and fintech companies, or even banks issue and anchor fiat assets. I hope that helps a little bit. Yeah, answering your question.
Yeah, that was really helpful. I appreciate it.
Sounds great. And that's all the questions I think we probably should have, because I would like for you to demonstrate Stellar Quest a little bit. I can do a quick intro. And so this is just kind of like if you would like to continue learning about blockchain fintech, the game Stellar Quest can be found through quest.stellar.org. And yeah, if you would like to kind of just like touch on it, maybe do a quick demo or something, I think that would be very good for our members to see if they would like to continue and really get more invested in kind of fintech and blockchain and Stellar.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want me to? I think you have to stop sharing your screen so I can share it.
Totally.
Continue. Sure. Okay. So this is, and you can see my screen. This is Stella Quest. Actually, like my colleague who is very invested in this is building currently a very exciting application that even has more features and fun activities. So there might actually be like a week of time where you cannot access this, just as a disclaimer. But once it will, I will send all the information you need to download that application. But this is just a little preparation for, I guess, when that is live, like which is likely on May 3rd, I believe. So yeah, Stellar Quest, learn Stellar, win prizes. If you're interested in learning about blockchain, cryptocurrency without all the when moon hocus pocus, which we will learn about when you enter this industry. If you just want to understand the tech, need a sensible place to start, welcome to Stellar Quest. Stellar Quest is a fun and interactive way to really like learn Stellar and to also learn the tech. So there has been a number of, so this is series 1. Currently, like in May 3rd, we're actually launching series 3 already. Each series has, I think, 8 challenges where you can like learn to really about the tech of Stellar. So let's quickly just look in. So you need a Discord account to like log in. So buy you a nice seafood dinner. Unfortunately not. I would like it, but so I'm logging in with Discord. And then the challenge, I am on series 1 right now. That's the best place to start. Series 1, challenge 1. Create and fund a Stellar account. In this challenge, your task is to create and fund a brand new Stellar account. And this is actually, this is how Stellar account number looks like. So this is actually the public key, which you will learn about with a signing key. I can tell you that a public key on the Stellar account is more like your email address. So these are all test key pairs, by the way. So it's fine, that you can see the signing key because it doesn't really contain anything. But when it is on the public network, these public keys act like your email address. So if you want to send an email, you have to know someone else's email address to send an email to them, right? So that's the public key. If you want to send someone money, you will send it to their public keys. But to be able to send money, you have to sign it with your signing key. So, first, like if you want to send an email to someone, you have to first log into your email and you have to fill in your password so you can actually send that email. So similar with the signing key, like the private key, which we also say, or secret key. So secret key is something you should not share with people. That's your private key. If someone has your public key and your private key, they own that account. But this is a test. This is testnet. So this is all. This doesn't matter. This is all on the testnet. So to actually do this, you will have to go into our developer documentation, which you can find. Oh, I actually have to move this. So I have this. This Zoom sometimes is annoying. Okay. So now here you go to transactions, and these are our developer documents. They contain a lot of information, but with Stellar Quest, you can kind of go through them part by part. So you will read about it, you will read about the source account, the fee, and what everything means. And then you can actually perform this particular, let me see, I have to go up again. And in the Stellar laboratory, which is this, so I have to move my screen around because there's this like Zoom thing above. And on the Stellar laboratory, you can create an account very easily. You can explore endpoints. You can build the transaction. You can then, these are all the things you'll learn about it once you look into it. And operation, you can then sign that transaction. Once I build it, you can sign it with your signing key. Then you can submit that transaction. So let's say if I want to just quickly create an account. So I create a secret key pair, and just so you know, this is all on the test network. So this doesn't actually affect the real life Stellar network, which is the public network. we're on the test network, and that's where you should be when you're testing things. So we have a key pair generator here, which is we have a nice little public key and a secret key, and then we can actually fund this a key with friendbot. So now we have test network X lumens or XLM. So I funded it. Great. I will then copy this, build a transaction. Let me say I want to build this transaction. I have a fetch a sequence number, which is like every transaction has a sequence number. So be sure to always fetch it. You have a base fee. Let me see, operation type. I want to send a payment. Let me send a payment to, for example, this public key. I want to send the payment to this public key. This is how you do it. Let's see, native. You can adjust your asset code. Also, I have not had asset code here, so I'm gonna just send. I already had maybe send 1,000. Right, perfect. Sign. It's pretty easy once you get to know it. So now I have to add a signer. And when I created the account, I have a secret key here. So you have to put that in the signer. And then you can submit in transaction submitter. And this is a little code that you will learn about a bit more. You can submit this transaction. Let's see if it works. Oh, it failed. I'm not sure why it failed, but anyway, maybe I did something. Oh, I think because this account has not been created yet. And anyway, that's kind of how you go through these transactions. And that's how you you basically, like every time they ask you to do a challenge, you go from this, you read about it, go to the development documentation, then go to Stellar Laboratory and really build that transaction. And then you can check it. I think I already fulfilled this one. So if I check it, I already did this one, but I guess not. Great. But anyway, once you follow through this, and this is also, this interface is going to be a bit different since it's going to be the application that you will download, but basically it's going to be the same. I think I can't. Yeah, I used to have a few prizes, but I guess since a new testnet reset, it has been released. But anyway, you can get very cool badges. And then also when there's actually a new series out, you can get rewards. So definitely encourage you to follow Stella Quest. I realize we're a few minutes over. Sorry about taking all of your time. I hope that was interesting. Maybe I'm not the best one to explain it, but and also there's a Discord. So there's an exciting community that kind of always talks about it and tests new stuff. I definitely recommend joining that to be up to date about the next updates. So I will send some information to all about it. And then, yeah, hopefully you guys can also go through the challenges.
Sounds great. And I'm just gonna kind of finalize up the presentation. But once like kind of that new series starts, I think it would be great to be able to send that and see if like we can have JEC members participate on it. I think that would be a great thing. And of course, thank you so much for everyone to coming to the event. And thank you so much, Anka, for your presentation. We do have a post-event survey, which can be accessed here. And also make sure to kind of attend next week's meeting, which is conducting market research for startups with Pankaj Parashar, co-founder of Purple Ant. And also make sure to stay for the member engagement committee's post-event discussion if you would like to. And make sure you're staying up to date by checking your newsletter and following the JEC on social media. So thank you everyone so much for coming. And I hope you learned as much as I did. And thank you, Anka, so much for your presentation.
Yeah, I hope you followed along. Obviously, if you have any questions or you want to rewatch this, I think it's recorded too, right?
Yes.
If any questions like that, I will leave a Discord link in here as well, or like I will actually, I might just send it to you all so that everyone has it afterwards. So if you have any more questions or want to learn more, you can, you have all the links and resources. So I hope, yeah, it was interesting to everyone, and yeah, join the fintech space. I would say it's exciting.
Thank you.